Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Unchained, yeah, and today you're watching my pan crop tutorial. Hopefully you bought this. If you haven't, you're a cunt, but if you have, I appreciate you giving me the money because it really does help out, and it's kind, and hopefully you'll find this worth the money. If you have any problems with anything, just tweet at me, red_unchained, and yeah, I'll try and help you out. Alright, so let's get right into this. We're starting off from where I finished off with the sinking and flow tutorial, but you don't need to have seen that at all. You just need to have a composition with even just one clip. You don't have to have synced it like this, and then some markers where you're going to be putting the beats for your pan crop. Pan crop is just screen pumps, if you don't know. Yeah, hopefully you knew that, but yeah, anyway. So I've got my composition right now is just the layers of the clips, and I've got my song, and I've got some beats marked out with, and they're all marked, so that's fine. And all my clips have Twixtor; they're already synced, so I'm just gonna go straight from there because this is how I edit. I just do syncing and then pan crop and then so on. So first thing you want to do is layer new adjustment layer, create a new little adjustment layer. I'm just gonna label this pan crop, and then first effect you're gonna drag on here is transform. Now people will be saying, what do you mean first effect? How I do my pan crop, it's gonna save you a lot of time, because what I do is I just keyframe on the transform and then link my s_shake and anything else you want to the scale with different values, so that you only have to keyframe the scale. You don't have to go back through and keyframe the shake every time, mess with the phases of the shaker and stuff, and it saves you like a third of the amount of time you'd usually spend on it. So yeah, this is a technique that I came up with by myself. It might have been used by someone else, but I came up with it by myself. Anyway, for now, I'm just going to turn off the pan crop layer while I mess with it, just so, because when I mess with it for the first time, this isn't the final outcome that I'm going to be making, because I still have to add shake and other things. So I'm just going to turn it off so that I can still just run smoothly and scrub smoothly through my timeline, because sometimes if the clips are badly compressed or something, I'm using this one, which is Zyvoice, shout out to my boy. But I'm using this one just because it's really nice. It works really smoothly with my After Effects, all 60 FPS, all live recorded anyway. So let's get right into this. So I've turned off the layer. I've dragged on the transform effect, and I'm just gonna keyframe the scale. Right, let's just zoom in, and then once you've pressed the stopwatch on the scale, you can just press U on your keyboard, and it comes up with it here, and you can mess with it. So the values I use for my scaling are 100 to 103, and then on beats, and then on shots I'll go 100 to 105, which is like a mad thing, because it's like bigger on shots than it is on beats, which is good. And then so it's like more staggered. And I usually, with rap edits, I usually just cut straight to the beat, so you see some people like missing a frame before it goes up to the value. So here, I'll give you an example. So I'll just go, we've got one frame at 100, and then next frame is at 103. Some people add in like 2 frames in here, so it like scales up, so it's like staggered, but I don't really think that looks good, so I just use straight to it. Yeah, so we got the 103 keyframe here, and this is the easiest part in it. I'm just gonna copy that and just paste it here and line it up so that the end keyframe is lined up with the marker every time. So it's lined up there, and then I'm just gonna do that here. But when I get to here, it's at 103, but I want it at 105 because it's on the shot. So I want it to scale up a little bit more for the shot. So I'm just going to change that to 105, and then it's going to cause a bit more impact on the shot rather than on the beats. And you don't have to use these values, you can use smaller ones or higher ones, but I'll teach you how to change that, because you have to change the expression as well later on. Okay, so we've got the basic stuff here. So here's another shot, so I'm just going to put that up to 105. But here there's 3 shots in a row, and I won't usually put 3 105s in a row just because it doesn't look very good, so I'm just going to paste that 103 there. So 105, 103, and then paste that again, and I'll just change this to 105 just to give the last shot a bit more impact. And then here's a beat, so I'm just going to go 103, another 103 because it's just another beat, and then scroll along, and we've got the last shot here. I'll just go to 105, and then got one more beat, and then it cuts out. And you want to make sure right before it cuts, you want to make sure the 103 or the 105 or whatever value you're using, just the final keyframe here is in line with the last frame. Because if it's here, then it'll look fucked up. It'll be all like out of sync and shit, and it's quite subtle, but it'll still, like, I'd be able to notice it, and it sort of annoys me anyway. Alright, so this is where we get into the good bit. So we've done the scale, that's perfect, easy, and we'll mess with the keyframes later, but for now we're going to get into what I drag onto, because I don't just have scale. If you've noticed, the screen rotates and it sometimes shakes up and down and stuff. That's a plugin called S_shake, Sapphire Shake. You'll want to get it, definitely. It's so handy, perfect for anything. Makes all cinematics look better. It's just a really good plugin that you want to get. So we'll just drag that on. It's right underneath, and straight away you can see, oh, the layer's not on, sorry. Straight away you can see there's disgusting, like, the whole screen's it's like an earthquake, like shaking around and stuff. So I'll just give you my settings now. This is, you can mess with this if you want, but I would always keep the amplitude and the frequency on 1, and then you can mess with the X, Y, and Z frequency and stuff down here. So I always keep that on 1, and then don't mess with the phase, the Z distance, or anything, or the motion blur. You don't need motion blur. You can add in RSMB. If you don't have RSMB, I guess you can add in motion blur, but don't really need to. And then let's just drop down this X shake here. So that's from left to right. That's the shake on the X-axis, obviously. So the X random amplitude, that's how randomly it shakes on the X-axis per tick. But we don't want that at all. We don't want any X-axis shake. And then it's got these settings for each axis. So we've got the random amplitude, the random frequency, so how fast it shakes from left to right. And then we've got the wave amplitude, which is not random, but it's like constantly going from side to side. So it's just like, it's like a metronome almost, like bouncing from side to side constantly, really smooth. And I always use the wave, never use the random, because it just looks a bit stupid, to be honest. But because the amplitude's on 0, it doesn't matter what the frequency is on, because it's like 0 times 1 is always 0, 0 times 1,000,000 is always 0, so it really doesn't matter. And then we've got the phase, that just messes with, you can't see it because I've got it on 0, but it messes with the stage of the rotation. If you have the frequency on 0 but the amplitude, you can change the stage of the rotation for yourself instead of having the frequency do it for you. And that's quite complicated. So we've got the same for the Y, but for now we're just gonna turn off that completely to 0, and the wave is on 0 as well, so we can just turn that off that. And the Z shake, automatically it's already on 0, so I'm just gonna leave that, that's fine. Z is like forward to backward, so like it's scaling up and down, and we don't want that. Now the tilt shake, this is where I use the most settings. If you want, like, this is how I get my wiggle. So we've got the random amplitude, we don't want that, I already said that, so turn that off. Now the wave amplitude, this is where it's gold. So my usually I only want it rotating, say 2 degrees. I mean, that's quite a lot. And then I'll have it on 2 frequency, maybe 1.5 degrees. It's a bit cleaner. It depends on how much you want, to be honest. It depends on like how intense the song is. So that's it. So now, as you can see, it's just constantly wiggling from left to right to left to right to left to right. And we don't want that. And we don't want it just constantly doing that. We want it to wiggle when the scale pumps, don't we? So what we're going to do is use an expression for this. So you just want to hold down Alt on your keyboard next to the spacebar, and then click on the stopwatch next to amplitude, and whoa, it's already this expression box popping up. But don't panic, it's fine. All you have to do is type in linear, open brackets, and then once you've got this there, you just want to grab the pick whip here, this little twirly thing, and just drag it to scale, and then let go, and you're fine. And then once you got that, you can just do this along with me if you want, and then you just go comma 100, comma 105, comma 0, comma 1, and then close brackets. Alright, so I'm just going to go through this expression. Basically, linear changes some values to other values. So for example, you can do linear value and then link it to something. So right here it's changing 100 and 105 to 0 and 1. So when the scale's at 100, it'll make the amplitude 0, and when the scale's at 105, it'll make the amplitude 1, because it's linked to the amplitude stopwatch. And if you're using bigger pumps or smaller pumps, you'll change this 105 to say 103 or 1110, whatever you're using. If you want a more intense sort of scale or something, then you can mess with that. And then you can also mess with the amount of rotation you want, which is here in the tilt shake. So that's just right here, tilt wave amplitude. Just mess with how much you want. But right now I only want it on 1.5 because I think it will sort of suit it. And there you go. Now, as you can see, when it scales up, it sort of shakes, and when it's at 100, scale, it's not scaled up at all. There's no shake, there's no wiggle, it's not constant. You can sort of see as I scrub through here that it does that, and it doesn't do it as much on a shot. It doesn't do as much on a beat as it will on a shot. So here it does it a little bit, and then it does a lot more on the shot. But that's not the only thing I link to my scale, because once you've got the scale keyframe set up, you can save a lot of time and make your edit look very nice by just adding a lot of things on. So I'm going to drag on the exposure effect, and again I'm just going to alt click on exposure and just go linear. It's almost the same command exactly. Open brackets and then scale, comma 100, 105. That bit's always the same. It's 100 and then the highest scale that you go to, so the shot scale, and then comma 0, comma, and I don't want it 1 because 1 will be too bright, so I'm going to put it to say 0.7 and then just close brackets, and there you go. So now it'll brighten on the beats, so it's dark here and then it brightens up when it's quite subtle, but it just gives it a bit of a nicer effect. Just because I've linked the exposure, and what exposure does is literally just brightens up the scene. As you can see here, there's a little temporary exposure thing. You can just that's exposure right there, and that's what I'm doing in here. So it's just linked it to that, and it just brightens up with every beat, which is good. So that's the only things I use. You can link anything to this. You can link blur, you can link whatever, but it will turn into a bit of an over edit. So I tend to keep it clean and just stick with exposure and shake. And once we're done with this, we can just move into the keyframes. So the keyframes, probably the most important part. As you can see right now, they're quite linear. They're just straight lines all the time. And if I click on this, it selects all the keyframes. And then you want to just go down here where there's sort of like a hill and just press easy ease. Now you can see they're all curved. So the way I set up my keyframes, you can mess with this as much as you want, but the way I do it is I sort of select all the top ones by just dragging a box over all of them, and then grabbing this top bit and just pulling it down a bit, so that it sort of starts going down as soon as the beat goes. Now I'll just select the bottom ones and just drag them along a little bit, just here, so that it sort of goes down a bit like that. Perfect. And that's how I do it. So that's pretty much my pan crop right there, already done. But there are a few other things you can add on, so I'll just preview that for you so you can see it with the beats and everything. It shouldn't take too long, it's only on half quality. So yeah, here we go. You can see it scaling up here, and then it only rotates when it scales up, and it's got quite a nice sort of organic wiggle and stuff. It's nice. Now, if that's not enough for you, if you don't just like this, you can add in other things. The good thing about just using the amplitude is you can change it at any time if it's on an adjustment layer and you've just keyframed the amplitude. So I could add in some Y shake if I maybe put this on 20 and then 2 and then 2. It's going to change it completely. So now it will be going up and down as well as rotating. So it sort of goes up and down a little bit as well. It's a bit hard to see, but yeah. If I mess with the keyframes a little bit, you just got to keep messing around with it until you get something that looks pretty good. That's pretty much editing though. So yeah, if we just keep doing that, you can see it's a completely different sort of animation. It's like rotating and going up and down and stuff. And then so that's basically my pan crop. Now, if you've bought one of my project files, you've probably noticed this. If I go off, there's a problem with the expression. It's sort of a bug in After Effects. If I go off the project, say I go into, I don't know, some random old project, which will probably take ages to open. Sorry. Oh, probably shouldn't have done that. Should have opened something that wasn't as heavy with the optical flares and stuff. Sorry, guys. Just be 2 secs. Yeah, files are missing. Alright. So we're in here, and now if I go back into that project that I was just in, if I go back into here, this pan crop tutorial in the CC pack, right, we get a little bit of an error message. So this is to do with the expressions that I just put in. It says amplitude line 1 of layer pan crop and comp 2, blah blah blah. You don't really need to worry about that. I mean, I understand it, but it's quite simple. It's basically saying that it doesn't know what scale is and the expression isn't working out, and that's because when you first when After Effects first opens up, for some reason, transform, this goes into scale height and then it changes into scale when it gets keyframed for some reason. It's just a bit of a bug. So all you have to do here is just alt click. It'll look like there's no expression there, but there actually is. So you just want to alt click on the stopwatch next to it just once. You won't see anything happen. It's just remove the expression and then just Control Z, and there you go, it's back. Then we can just do the same with the exposure, just alt click and then Control Z, and that'll work for whatever expression stopwatch you've got on. Just remember to alt click and then Control Z, and it's completely fixed. It's back to how it was before we opened it. So yeah, guys, that's my pan crop. That's how I do it all. This is how I edit today with my pan crop, and my syncing still hasn't changed. That's exactly how I do it. So if you want to go and purchase a syncing and flow tutorial, you can. I've used the same technique for my whole time editing, and it's the same with the pan crop. But thanks for purchasing. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope it was worth your money. Tweet at me on Twitter if you have any problems or whatever, and yeah, I'll catch you guys there.